So this morning what we're going to talk about, oh good morning by the way, this morning what we're going to talk about is how to tie a dubbing loop. I think it's one of the most critical part of hare's ears, actually anything. I do it in all my streamers, I do it in everything. And people have kind of got away from dubbing loops. I don't know why, because they are far superior to anything you can buy pre-packaged, and they're really creative. I mean, if you look at a hare's ear like the one I just showed you, you'll see it's picky. You look at most commercial hare's ears or any dubbed body, you'll see they're really tight and they don't have all the little filaments showing all over the place. So I'm just going to show you quickly how to do it, because it really, I think it's a hallmark. I don't really think that you can be a really good tire without doing them, and you really just can't get the effects that you're looking for. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how to pick the hair and how to pick the materials, and then I'll show you about the tool itself. But when you first start, I mean, regardless if you're doing a hare's ear or if you're doing a big, a sex dungeon, I do loops on all of my streamers. You look at the pearl necklace or any of those ones that have real picky bodies. You can't get that by wrapping the stuff around the thread, but you can do it really easy by doing it with a dubbing loop. And I've got a couple examples that Johnny will show you here when we do the still. But what we do is we pick this stuff in advance and we make a taper. And so when you go in here, when people say it's a hare's ear, that means it's a hare, the rabbit, and its ear. And we don't really just use the ears. I'm kind of a random picker. I go into the ear up in here and I pick a little of the hair off there. I pick a little out of his forehead. I like this real fuzzy stuff around the cheeks. Okay, so I just kind of do a random pick. And what I'm going to try to do is then once I've got that hair randomly picked from around it, and the reason you do a random is the fuzz, it holds it together, but you're really looking for these guard hairs, the shorter guard hairs, to make it look real picky. So what I do is I go in here, I pick from short hair up top, middle hair in the middle of the forehead, and then there fluffy cheeks here, that's real fuzzy and long. And so then I kind of blend them through. And I know you couldn't see that, and it's going to be hard to see, but basically all I'm doing is blending them to get different lengths. And then what I do is I build the taper in my hand in advance. And I realize that's going to be really hard to see. That's why we did the stills that Johnny will cut off and show you. But basically I've got short hair here, which is going to go in first, and long hair here. So to do a dubbing loop, you're going to have more hair up your nose, you know what to do with. So to do a loop, you have to have the right tool. Currently there is not from my point of view, there is not a really good dubbing loop on the market. This is one I made out of an old piece of wire, Matarelli dubbing sheep herder's hook they called it. I bent it and put stuff in the middle. I used to make these for people, and we would put egg sinkers, and we'd put 3 egg sinkers in the middle of these, and then we'd epoxy them on. There's one coming out. There's some guys coming out with some new ones, but the reason I like these long ones, as you're going to see, is I get a ton of control out of it. I can move it like this. You know, a lot of the little ones, you've got to move your fingers in here, and there's not a lot of tooling, to hold in the hand so that you can move it around. So I'll show you what I do. You got the loop on this end, and you simply make a loop around your hook, go back over it, wrap that tight. Now the thread, I personally don't like wax threads, but if you use them, fine. I don't like the real tacky stuff. I don't like to put dubbing wax that's real tacky on there, because I like to be able to move this, as you'll see in a second. So what I've got now is I've just got a loop through the tool, and if you're blind, okay, so now I've got a loop on the tool here, and I open it with my finger and get the two separated. So there's a loop under my finger. Now I take this dubbing that I've already pre-dubbed, I've already picked it all apart, and I got the skinniest part up at the front, so I slide that between these two loops, alright? You see it's sitting there, it's not going anywhere, so as soon as I decide that's where I want it, just simply move it around. If it's not thick enough in the middle, you can, at this point, you can, before you start doing anything, you can move it around, and that's why I like the unwaxed thread. So I move that around, get it where I want it, I start looking at it, and this is what makes this so efficient. I come down here, I hold the end of that, and I give it a spin. All right? I'm basically done. It's that fast. I spin it, it's there. I don't like it, I unspin it. And then I just move it around. It gives you a lot of mobility. You can sit here and pick out this shape real easy. Give it its spin, and there it is. You don't like there's a few too long here, just go in and pick them out. It is so easy to do. And it'll make your, it especially will make your nymphs look so much better. But your big flies do the same thing. Obviously, then I just go ahead, I wrap forward, and there's my body. So I would rib over top of it. It's really easy. Now, so there's the picky hare's ear body, right? So I just tied that off because I want to show you one other thing. So now I'm going to cut that out. I wouldn't do this normally. I'm just doing it so you can see how to be repetitive to see how to do the loop. So once again, I just hook it in the loop, go over top of it. I do a couple wraps around it so it's nice and tight there. Now I go forward, and now instead of doing a dubbing loop, you get into a hare's ear, and let's say, or any fly. Again, I'm just using the hare's ear as an example. Now you want to put legs in it. And this one you can do two ways, but this is how I do my own. You can randomly pick longer fibers and do it, or you can do one. I'll show you just a real simple thing here. I just got to get the right hair. So I came in here right in the forehead, and I broke the forehead in half. That's an old one. I'm going to cut this off so you can see it. So I cut this hair off one big gob. All right. I'm not trying to randomly pick this stuff out now. I cut it out of the front of the forehead because it has a nice clean line to it. Now I'm just picking this out. Now I don't know how well you can see that, but it's all the same length. I've got it cut off really square. There's the bottom of the hair, and there's the guard hairs, all right? So they're all one length. Now I simply put that in without picking it or anything. It's just cut like nice and square. Put it in the dubbing loop. Slide it. So this will get a little crazy. Have Johnny zoom in on that a little bit there, Johnny. So you can see, I'll try to hold this still so you can see it. Can you get her?
Yep.
All right. So now you can see they're all in here the same length. All right. So now what I'm going to do, it's all one length. Tighten up my loop. There's just a few turns here to get it going tight, and then I spin it. And what you'll see is I've got a long dubbing. All right, nice and fuzzy in the middle, and then you just wet your fingers, bring it to one side, and now what you're going to see, instead of having them random lengths, they're all one length, and so I'm going to go across here, keep them going to the back, and I'll wrap that around, and what you're going to see is I'll get legs now. Okay, so now I went from one fuzz, had the nice little hare's ear fuzzy body, to, they're a little wet on the ends, but you can see they're nice and long now. So basically what I've done is I've built the body, and if you want to do that all as one, you can do it. It's a little more complicated just because you got to have both hairs in there. But I've got nice long hairs now. I've got legs in the front. I've got the body in the back. If you do that, if you're doing a big dungeon or something like that where you want nice picky hair, but it's synthetic, do the same thing. Build your taper in advance, just like that. Make it thicker towards you, so when you put it on, it gets thicker. You build your taper as you go. I guarantee you, when you start doing this, your flies will step up a notch. And not only do they look better, but especially when you come to the mayfly world, if you've got a picky body, you're imitating those gills on the side of their body, you'll have a much more lifelike fly, and I guarantee it'll outfish those real tight-looking flies that are, not so sexy. Hope that helps you out.